Hi, welcome to Automatic Show, transmitting from the studios of NTA2, Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Ben Oko, and I have LJ here with me, John Quincy.
Good morning.
And together we'll be taking your car questions that have been sent to us on our platforms. And we'll also be looking at a topical issue today when the time comes. So we'll go straight to the car questions that we get from our viewers. And let's go right there. LJ, do you have the first one there? Let's look at it.
First question here says, my car, a Toyota Camry 2009, was overheating, so I changed the thermostat and water pump. Then it stopped overheating. But after a few kilometers, it lost power and sounded like the valves were rattling. Then the engine shut off. I let it set for 15 to 20 minutes. I jump-started the battery, which had died, and was able to drive it home. But as I got close to my house, it started again, the rattling sound again, and started to overheat. So I pulled off the road, turned the car off until the temperature went down, and then drove it home. There are no visible leaks or around the engine or the ground underneath. What can be done?
Well, I'm looking at a situation like a car that has overheated, and they just changed the water pump and the thermostat. But I think what they didn't do was to do a very comprehensive diagnosis on exactly what has happened to the vehicle before concluding that the thermostat or the water pump is what is at fault. So looking at why the engine stalled now, if the battery actually died, then there's also another problem, because the water pump or the engine overheating won't kill the battery.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so what are we looking at here? Let's look at the reason why the battery had to run down in the first place.
Well, I'm looking at other things that he probably didn't observe.
Yeah.
For instance, maybe the belt went off.
Okay, the drive belt.
The drive belt.
Okay.
So if the drive belt goes off, that means you won't have water
The water pump will not be powered,
propelling. So
the alternator also.
Alternator will not run, which means that your battery will run down as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Then if it is an electric steering, you won't feel the steering going hard on you. Being a 2009 Toyota Camry, this is an electric steering, so you won't feel the steering going hard on you. Then the rattling you were hearing, this is as a result of the battery running out, not enough power to service all the sensors, to provide power for all the sensors and their signal, and the engine started misfiring.
Yeah.
So you will hear such rattling. The steering would become considerably hard, difficult to turn, and before you know it, all the lights will start to blink, blink, flash, flash, and then before you know, the car comes to a halt.
Yeah, but one thing you didn't mention is if any light came on the dashboard when that happened.
There was no mention, but
yeah,
I want to believe there were lights on.
Okay, and let's also look at the from another angle. The overheating is still there, despite the fact that the water pump and thermostat were replaced.
Yes.
So, and for it to still overheat, that means the initial problem of overheating wasn't cured at all.
Yeah, definitely.
So the rattling can also result from overheated engine.
Yes,
right?
Because the engine is running too hot and it's beginning to ping.
Yeah.
You know, one question I would have loved to ask is, when all this was were happening, did he bother to look in through the bonnet to see if the belt was there?
Yeah.
Because I still see a whole lot pointing to the belt came off. The thermostat, the water pump wasn't propelling water anymore.
Yeah.
And the alternator wasn't running because the initial problem he had was overheat.
Yeah, not the battery running
down. Not the battery running down, but this time around now, he has the battery running down as well with the overheat. So that battery running down is the more reason why I'm looking at possibly the belt came off.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I think what we would advise him here is do a proper diagnosis on it, and the diagnosis here will involve visual inspection to check if the belt is actually in place there, if the belt is there, and also checking Now, the other diagnosis will, involve using another equipment, that is the coolant pressure test,
Yes.
because he said he hasn't seen an obvious leak, the coolant leak anywhere.
Definitely.
But I mean, if an engine overheat to that level, don't you think the pressure built up inside the engine should be able to?
What you will observe, he wouldn't want to consider it a leak.
Okay.
There will be the excess flow in the radiator cap.
Yeah.
And the reservoir might get overfilled up
and then
and start to spill and overflow.
Yeah.
So he would not want to consider that maybe a leak because it's as a result of the overheating.
Yeah.
But what you should do here is get your mechanic to visually inspect if your belt is there and if it is firmly fixed. Because if the adjuster is bad and is not properly, and being a 2009 Toyota Camry, that should be it's either a 2AZ engine or a 2AR engine.
Yeah.
If it is a 2AR, which means you don't have the automatic adjust. Okay, for the Camry you have the automatic adjuster.
Yeah.
It's for the Corolla that you wouldn't have the automatic adjuster.
Okay, I'm sure Tolu is able to understand what we're talking about here, and will be able to carry out a recommendation and have the problem resolved. Now we have another one here from Teju, also taken from Facebook, and this is what he said here. My 2003 Nissan Sentra has been experiencing cylinder misfire for a few weeks now. SES, that is service engine soon light, blinks with a random misfire code. I have replaced all the spark plugs and coil packs within the past year. The cam and crank sensors were just replaced as they failed on me. The misfire, which can arise at any time, most frequently comes about when I'm going just over 60 kilometers. Sometimes I can slam on the accelerator and the misfire will stop. Other times, the misfire will continue all the way until I reach my destination. Recently, I was driving and the misfire began. I noticed the AC was on. I shut it off to lower the load on the engine. This resulted in misfire stopping. This doesn't always work, nor does the misfire always occur when the AC is on. Just though it was interesting, I'm trying to get this. I've read so much about this issue in the 2003 Sentra, but no one has come up with a clear solution. I'm worried about taking it to a mechanic, as many have done so, just to have the issue persist. Misfire. Yes. And it's not so much about it, the spark coils, the spark plugs. We're looking at the area of electrics now.
Yeah. Obviously, if he has gone ahead to change the spark coils, the spark plug, and he's still having the same problem, I would not want to look at the mechanical aspect of it because sometimes it doesn't happen.
Okay.
If it were a mechanical failure, you will consistently have that, except maybe you have a problem with the adjuster, the chain adjuster, because the engine should be a chain. The chain adjuster, if the chain adjuster is bad and maybe sometimes it leaves the cam.
Yeah, you have you're having something like over advanced, over
retarded,
retarded,
and then the valve starts to not lap very well, and you get the misfire. Apart from that, there is no other way I can actually register this with a mechanical failure. But looking at this electrically, there is a whole lot of electrical hands here, ranging from the point where I think you need to first of all run a scan, and not just conclude that it's misfire, it's a regular misfire. There are a couple of things that can actually result to misfire. Yeah. If you have a bad mass airflow sensor that has an open circuit or a partially broken circuit internally, sometimes you will have this, sometimes you won't have it. Same thing with wiring. If you have a problem with the wire harness, maybe where you're supposed to have the power that goes to all the coils and all the injectors, the wire that carries that power is partially broken somewhere, or is partially having high resistance, or partially grounded somewhere. You would experience this kind of issue, especially when you run into a bump or run into a ditch. You'll have cases where the minute you run into a bump, you start to see the misfire come up, and after some time it clears up and all that intermittent.
Okay, we'll still come back to this same issue because I think it will solve a lot of issues for so many people who are experiencing the same thing. But don't go away. We'll be back after this short break.
Do you know that you can actually drive your vehicle without engine oil for 50 kilometers? This is very, very achievable, all thanks to Polytron. Still a doubting Thomas? Let our technician prove this to you.
We are about to drain the engine oil of this car to see the power of Polytron, the product that has nanotechnology buried in it, because we believe that Polytron is already working in it. And after doing that, put the car together and we'll drive it around.
Now that you have seen the power of Polytron, buy a bottle today to increase the lifespan of your engine, reduce fuel consumption, save cost also on expensive repairs.
Welcome back after this break, and we'll be talking about briefly about Automedics Training School. And LJ, John Quincy, I keep calling him LJ because that is a popular name everybody knows him by. Okay. You've been an instructor in the Automedics Training School.
Yes,
right? And,
for quite some time now.
Yeah. So can you give us a brief of the Automedics Training School?
Well, the school is all about, apart from re-educating the professionals who are already in the field,
yeah.
I mean the mechanics we have
the regular
around,
mechanics,
the regular mechanics we have around, the regular rewires we have around, which I personally would love to call them automotive electricians.
Yeah.
Now, apart from re-educating them, we are also in the field of bringing in youngsters, young graduates who are just out of school and they want to maybe practice some of the things they learned in school.
Yeah.
Probably not fully automotive, but something relating to it, such as elect, mechanical engineering, and all that. And you want to put some of your skills to practice. We have an opening for them in the school where they come in, they take the course.
Okay.
There are several stages of the course and different aspects of it. You have the auto diagnostic class, which is the very popular one that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And that's more like the foundational course that you take. So this gives you a broad view of automotive diagnosis and repair, because it's both practical and theoretical.
Okay.
So while you take the theory in the class, you also carry out the practical in the workshop with real life vehicles, where you are asked to do one or two things, and how to approach a vehicle that has a problem, how to test after repairs and all that. And then you see some jobs that are being done, engine rebuild and all of it, during your auto diagnostic course process. So in the auto diagnostic course, you do that. There is also the electrical course where you learn about how vehicle electricals work, the vehicle electrical architecture, I would like to call it.
Not the regular rewire stuff.
Not
anymore.
the regular rewire stuff. So that when you know the vehicle electrical architecture, be it whatever vehicle, a Lamborghini or a Toyota, whichever one it is, because you have an idea of how a vehicle electrical architecture should be, you will know where to locate the fuse box, where the wiring will go through, and what are the known terms for describing all of those things. Then also under the auto diagnostic class, you get to learn how to run a scan on a vehicle, how to connect a scan to interpret the fault codes you get from running a scan on a vehicle. You get to learn all that. There is also the key programming and ECU programming class, where you learn how key programming and ECU programming is done on vehicles, and also the advanced parts of it too, where you clone keys and all that, and all of it, and how you approach faults, because sometimes it's not that the key is bad, it's just that the vehicle security system has a fault.
Or maybe some electrical or electronic
problem. So instead of programming the key, you resolve the fault that the vehicle has, and then probably get a spare key for the vehicle. You get to learn about that, and we also run some separate courses too, like individuals that would want to privately be taught.
Okay, one-on-one, because
one-on-one
I've been seeing so many garages springing up. So operators of such garages can actually,
apply for the training of their staff that are in the workshop, the mechanics, their hands in the workshop. Yes, we also offer such training, because and another thing is every now and then the syllabus is always upgraded to make sure
it meets up-to-date technology.
Exactly. The new automotive technologies you have out there are also part of what we talk about and what we train about.
Well, so you can actually call it the Complete Automotive Institute.
Exactly.
Yeah, but now the question is it only graduates that can actually apply for this program?
No. You know, the truth is there are some people who are not graduates,
Yeah.
but they are technically inclined.
Yeah.
And they know what we are doing. They have an idea of what we are doing, or they have a strong passion to do what we are doing. So the invitation is also extending to them. They can come in and also take the course and pass the course, because one of the watchword there is passing the course.
Yeah.
Once you can pass the course, that means you can go for trials where different mechanic workshops and all that. You can go there for trials, and once they know you can do very well, you get your employment immediately.
All right. I mean, that is a brief of the Automatics Training Institute, where you'll be able to go and get yourself grounded in auto repairs, modern auto repairs. Automotive repairs have actually gone completely electronics.
Yes.
So you need the prerequisite knowledge for you to be able to approach modern vehicles. And we're not just standing there, because you see where the automotive industry is going right now. We're going electric, fully electric. You know, plug in, charge your vehicle like you're charging a phone. And from there also, we are talking about autonomous vehicles that will be able to drive themselves and all that. So we should not be stagnant. It means that we continually upgrade our skills.
And one more thing I would add is the certifications.
Yeah,
we also have certifications for all the courses that we offer. And there is even the NSQ certification that we're working on. So you don't just get only automatic certification, you also get
you got a world-renowned certification.
NSQ certification as well.
Okay, so that's for that, LJ. Thank you very much for giving an expose on the automatics training school. I wish we could take more questions here, but unfortunately, I mean, time will not permit us to do that. We'll be doing topic of the day much later after we come back from the break. We'll be taking the next segment, which is the topic of the day. And that topic is something that is really topical, because we've seen a lot of things happen just by merely making a simple mistake in that area.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So we'll be giving you we'll be going on a short break. And when we come back from that, we'll be having our topic of the day.
Strong communication skills, good diagnostic skills, problem-solving skills, solid work ethics, strong technical aptitude, and up-to-date technology. Watch Automatics on your reach-out station as we provide clear-cut solutions to your automobile problems. Automatics, showing every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. with a repeat broadcast at 11:30 a.m. on Saturdays. Automatics, the best hands on your automobile.
Welcome back to the Automatic Show, transmitting from the studios of NTA2 Victoria Island Network Center. Okay, today will be our topic of the day. The consequences of using wrong lubricant specifications.
Well,
it's a very large topic, but we try to break it down to the layman's understanding.
Yes, because over time we've been facing this problem in this country, where you see a car that supposed to last maybe 10 years or more.
Yeah.
Now, before it gets to even 5 years, you're thinking of changing the engine.
Yeah.
Now you're asking, why is that? Why is it so? Now, the truth is, a lot of people don't really consider the engine oil they pour into the engine.
That's very important.
As very important, because we are all used to the era we were before, where the engine oil quality didn't matter. It just
I've actually heard things like oil na oil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just pour it into the engine and just drive off. We're used to the era where before you leave in the morning, you have to start your vehicle and
warm
hear
the-
this rattling sound that comes from it. Oh, the oil has not supplied.
Yeah.
Let's wait for the oil to supply. So you wait, give it like 2-3 minutes for the oil to circulate, and then you get in and drive. And you advise that if you try to drive the vehicle without allowing that wait period, you wear out the engine and all of that.
Yeah.
We're used to that era. But you know, in the modern day, in the modern engines, it works differently. The engines are built to be a lot tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you hear less noise because
The tolerance.
the tolerance space is really, really tight.
Yeah.
And the components are packed together.
Yeah.
So there is less noise coming from the engine because everything works tightly. Now, for that tight space to be properly lubricated,
Yeah.
there are several factors that must be put into place. One being that the oil has to be light enough to go into such tight spaces easily.
Yeah. But you know, from where we're coming from,
Yes.
let me just go back a little back, back there. People say the thicker the oil is, the better it is. That was the assumption.
Because that assumption is that looking at it physically,
Yeah.
before it gets heated up,
Yeah.
you are assuming that, okay, if the oil is very thick, that means if two metals have a thick oil between them, they won't wear out. And it will quieten so many things. And you know, older engines had a lot of space in there.
Yeah.
A lot
The
of
tolerance were
clearance,
not so-
tolerance were not very tight like this.
Yeah.
So you needed that thick oil to be able to fill that gap, those spaces you have in there.
Yeah.
Because if you put a light oil, all you're going to hear for the whole day is rattling everywhere.
Yeah.
So you need the thick oil to do that. But in a modern engine where everything is tight fit and everything is very close, you will need a light oil. So you know why I went the way of the light oil is some people are surprised when they see the specification that the manufacturer gave. Okay, they eventually got the oil and they say, okay, let me even have a look at the oil and see the oil so light.
Yeah.
How will this lubricate the engine?
Exactly.
No, this oil is too light. It cannot lubricate the engine. Well, that is what is specified
Yeah.
for the engine because of the design that
Okay,
you have there.
Yeah. Well, now let's look at one angle too. We have monograde oil, we have multigrade oil,
Yes.
we also have mineral-based oil, and we also have synthetic-based oil. Now let's go to the monograde and the multigrade.
You know, when it comes to the monograde and multigrade, we're looking at temperatures here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you go by the monograde, it's good for a cold region or it's good for a hot region,
Yeah.
whichever one it is.
Yeah.
That's why it's a monograde,
Yeah.
because that's how it affects temperature. Now, if it's a multi-grade, it means that it's good for both hot and cold region.
Yeah.
The manufacturer of the oil has been able to find a way to adapt the oil so that in a cold region, the oil will still manifest very well. In a hot region, it will manifest very well.
Yeah.
And that is what most manufacturers are recommending for vehicles right now, because there is no reason why you were using a vehicle in Iceland and you were using 5W30 and you're bringing it to Nigeria,
Yeah.
and you can't use that oil because the oil you were using in Iceland was an oil that is very good for cold region.
Yeah.
So now you have to change your oil. So these days, the manufacturer gives you a specification that matches the vehicle anywhere you take the vehicle to. And if he is going to specify otherwise, it will be written in the manual.
So you have options of, if you can't use this, if you can't find this,
You
this
use
is the
this
alternative.
Alternative that you can, and most times the alternative are not very far from each other when it comes to the grading. And you know, when it comes to grading, we're looking at this, the viscosity,
Yeah.
and the quality.
Yeah.
Two things they always look at to grade the oil.
Now I think we need to explain this to our viewers too. The viscosity and also the quality.
Well, by definition, we say viscosity is the friction that exists in a liquid. When you pour the liquid down, the friction that exists when it starts to move around is known as viscosity. Now, a very thick oil is highly viscous, very thick.
Yeah.
Now, low viscosity oil means that the oil can easily move around.
Yeah.
Now, modern cars, they have specially built oil pump that are very light, very small. Sometimes when you see what is called an oil pump in an engine, you don't see all the usual gears and all that metals that you see there. It's very light.
Yeah.
So it is expected that this oil pump, they will push light oil. Push light oil around the engine. So they do so, and they do so very quickly.
Yeah.
Now, a case where you feel because the physical appearance of the oil is too, the viscosity is too low,
yeah,
like it's too
too
light,
thin.
it's too thin, you decide to put a thick oil, you're putting so much work on the oil pump. It will not be able to just easily transmit that oil to the upper area of the engine, especially when you park the car overnight.
Yeah, it becomes something like a gel.
A lot of people will have observed this, that when you just got the car newly,
yeah,
when you start in the morning, you just hear the chung, and then the engine starts
goes
to run
quiet.
And then after like maybe 6 months of servicing the car
yeah,
severally, you see that when you start it in the morning, the first thing you hear is this very irritating rattling sound.
Yeah, for a few seconds.
And then for a few seconds, and then it quietens up, and the engine starts to run the way it used to run before.
Yeah.
And if you're very observant, you will notice that.
Something.
That is what we're talking of here.
Yeah.
Because over time, the thick oil you've been using, it usually takes a whole long time for it to get to the top of the engine. So subsequently, the top area of the engine has worn out. Certain parts,
it's not getting lubricated.
they don't get lubricated
and
early.
the friction begins to eat it up gradually.
Eat it up gradually till 6 months. To now where the sound is so very pronounced,
Yeah.
because you didn't use the right specification of oil.
Wow. Well, you know, like I said, when I introduced this topic, I said this is a very topical issue, and we can go on and on to discuss about lubricant, because the lubricant are actually the lifeblood of the engine. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but do keep a date with us again. Automatics will be back, and we'll try as much as we can to treat your questions. And please, when you're sending in your question, make it as brief as possible, so we'll be able to take as much questions as we can. Do have a lovely time, and bye for now.